appreciate the chance we have to get together, and I don't know if there's something or not here that we have that will be able to help you. So I'll just go through the areas that we work in, such as increasing cash flow, reducing debt, and reducing taxes. We also work with life insurance and annuities to help shave years off of your retirement. And then if there's an interest on your part, I can come back and get some information from you. And when we get back together, we'll get into some specifics. But for today, there's nothing to buy, so just sit back and relax. FFG is a national company that represents life insurance companies and other large financial institutions that have billions of dollars in assets. And some of them have been in business for hundreds of years. So what we do is we teach people about money, how money works, and how to make it work better for you, and specifically, how to become financially independent. And what that means is that the money that you're earning on the money that you've saved can replace the money that you would receive from your business or your job. And at that point, you're financially independent. You don't have to work anymore. You could choose to, but you don't have to. Wouldn't you like to know how to get there the soonest? That's where we're headed. So I want to mention a couple of issues and challenges that folks have been having. Over the last 10 years, incomes have gone up, yes, but expenses just keep going up and up. Most Americans can't really say that their income has kept up with the cost of their mortgage, other utilities and expenses. And that's a problem. And here's my point. Out of 100 people that are turning 65 years old today, only 4 of them are financially secure to the extent that they are making $35,000 a year. So what's going on with the rest of these people? Well, some of them are receiving money from their family, some are receiving money from charity, but the majority of them are working. Heck, have you seen all the seniors that work at Walmart? The other day I just was popping into Wendy's and I was just going to have a quick chicken sandwich for lunch, and it was super busy, and I was headed towards a table in the back. It looked like the only one, and there was a lady there that was just kind of slow motion, just kind of cleaning it, and I was standing behind her and she didn't really even notice me. She just kind of moving really slow, and then she finished and she turned around and I noticed that she was like 75 years old, at least. And you know what's sad? Working at Wendy's is not her hobby. She's doing that because she needs the money. And it's a big problem. And it's getting bigger because people are living longer. But there are solutions. And that's what we'll talk about next. So what we do is we work in these 7 different areas to help you build your financial future. We weave these areas together, increasing your cash flow, reducing your debt, and reducing your taxes to achieve financial independence. So I'm just going to rip through these kind of quickly. Stop me if you have any questions. But also remember the areas where you might have a higher priority. And we can come back and develop a strategy around that later. Okay, the first area is what we call inspect what you expect. And because if you plan to have money later on for your future goals and dreams, you need to know what your money is doing right now. So part of learning about how money works is by identifying in your own budget where your money is going. So we can introduce you to a tool to track all of your income and all of your bills and expenses. And the goal here with this is to identify some money that's going places that maybe you didn't know where it was going, and then redirect that back into your budget to pay down your debts or direct towards your future goals and dreams so that we can shave years off of your retirement date. That's step 1. Okay, step number 2 is to increase cash flow. Now, Jesse, what is your definition of cash flow? And that's a great definition. But let's also define cash flow as this. It's the amount of money that you have left over every month after all of your income has come in and all of your bills and expenditures have gone out. So what we can do is we can introduce you to a company that helps you increase your cash flow by minimizing the amount that you spend on the cost to carry your debt. Step 3 is the debt eliminator. And we use 2 different plans to help people eliminate debt. So this is an example of a fairly typical family that has a mortgage, an auto loan, a credit card, a store card. They've got all these minimum payments, and they're actually making the minimum payments. And if they continue to do that, they'd have all their debt paid off in 26.8 years. But what we can do is, if you're interested, is I can take the information about your debt, and I can take it and I can run it through our debt eliminator program at the office, and I can come back to you with a special personalized debt eliminator plan that will show you how quickly you can get out of debt. Now, if we could do that where you could get out of debt, now if you could get out a lot quicker out of debt, Jesse, but pay the same amount that you're paying monthly, would that interest you? Okay, good. So as I was saying in this example, these people could just follow the minimum payments, and they'd be out of debt in 26.8 years. Or, by using the debt eliminator program, they could actually be out of debt in 13.1 years. Furthermore, after that 13.1 years is over, if they just keep making their payments, the same payment that they were required to make in the minimum payments in the beginning, and if they were putting that money into a savings account for the complete duration of that 26.8 years, they would actually have all their debt paid off, but potentially also be able to save up to $500,000 roughly. So that's part of the debt eliminator plan. The other part of the debt eliminator plan is a hypothetical debt restructure. So this is another typical family who has a couple mortgages, a car loan, 2 credit cards, and a store credit, and they're paying $1,937 a month on $206,000 of debt. What they could do, potentially, is roll all that debt into a new mortgage of $210,000 at 5.5% interest, and create a new mortgage payment of $1,192, which is $745 a month less, or that they would have freed up at this point to direct back into their budget. So the secondary consideration for these folks becomes, well, do we do a 15-year or do we stick with a 30-year? And this is a question a lot of folks ask. So if they did the 15-year mortgage and paid $716 a month and had their mortgage paid off in 15 years, but then after that decided to go ahead and continue to make that $716 a month payment, at the end of that time, they'd have $593,000 saved up if they were able to earn 8% on their money as they were saving. So the consideration is this, whether to do a 15 or a 30-year mortgage. If they choose a 30-year mortgage, the difference between the 2 mortgages is $524 a month. If they began immediately to save that money somewhere where they could get 8% return on their money, then in 30 years their mortgage would still be paid off, but they'd have $780,000 in the bank. That's a difference of $187,000. Wow! It's a big difference. That's an eye-opener. So what we're doing here is we're just helping people manage their debt so that their debt doesn't manage them. All right, the next area is developing an emergency fund. And what we have found is that in general, people don't have an emergency fund. So when the transmission needs to be replaced and costs $1,800, well, out comes the plastic. And in 3 or 4 years, when it finally gets paid off, that $1,800 transmission now has cost $3,000 or $4,000. So what we recommend is an emergency fund. And a sound emergency fund has 4 characteristics. Number 1, it's safe. Number 2, it's liquid. Number 3, it's earning a return higher than your checking account. And number 4 is it's systematic. So that when you need the money's there. So what we recommend is that you put away $50 from your checking account that gets transferred automatically into a money market account on the same day of every single month. So it's out of sight, it's out of mind. You won't touch that money over there. So that way when the emergency does come up, the money's there. Have you ever tried to develop an emergency fund inside a checking account? It doesn't happen. And the reason it doesn't happen is because that money is fair game to be used for all sorts of things. But if it's in a separate account, it's out of sight, it's out of mind. When the emergency comes up, it's there. And that way you don't have to, that way you pay for that expense out of your emergency fund, and you don't have to put it on your plastic. It keeps your credit card balances at 0, and it also keeps you from dipping into your retirement accounts and keeps you from incurring that 10% penalty. It's safe, it's automatic, and it works. Step 5 is about protecting what you've got. And really it's about protecting your family against the loss of income. You know, it can be really devastating when there's a husband and a wife, and let's say they've got 3 kids, and all of a sudden dad's gone. And not only is dad gone, but his income's gone. So now who's going to pay the mortgage payment? Who's going to pay the other expenses? Much less sending the kids to college. You know, it's just devastating, right? So an important part of any financial plan is protection against the loss of income. And we do things a little bit differently. What we do is we take into account all of a person's financial needs, and then we come back with options that allows one to save money and have the proper long-term life insurance protection. That's step 5. All right, this is the one that gets me going. This is step 6. And this is long-term financial independence. Okay, this is the one that everybody likes the best. And if you listen to me, this will change the quality of your life. So, step 6 is about, again, building long-term financial independence, long-term savings or income. But there's 2 battles that we've got to address. We've got to engage in these 2 battles, because if we don't engage in these 2 battles of financial, the 2 battles are the battle against inflation and the battle against taxes. If we don't engage in both of these, now can I be strong with you? The likelihood of ever becoming financially independent is way out there. So first of all, we're going to talk about attacking the battle against inflation. Sometimes we also call it the rate of return battle. Have you ever heard of the rule of 72? What the rule of 72 says is that you take your rate of return that you're getting on your savings, let's say 4%, and you divide that into 72. And the answer that you come up with is how many years, in this case 18, that it takes your money to double. So if you had $100 now, and it doubled in 18 years, and then doubled in another 18 years, you'd have $400 in 36 years. And do you think that $400 in 36 years will buy you what $100 will buy you now? I don't know. And that's inflation. So Jesse, if people are investing, people are saving, where are they saving? Banks, credit unions, other fixed accounts, maybe getting 1 or 2%. See, their money is growing, but the problem is that inflation may be growing faster. And what happens then is that people lose purchasing power. The value of their money is going down and they may never retire. And that's a huge problem. But it's a problem that we can address. So let's look at this example. And in this example, let's assume that you are 29 years old. You've got 36 years old until you retire. You've got 36 years until you retire at 65. And when you retire at 65, you've got $40,000. Now, how long is that $40,000 going to last? Heck, the way you spend money, it probably won't last half that time. Just kidding. It may last a year. If you're super frugal, it might last a year and a half, but the problem then is that you're out of money. And you're also out of time because you don't want to work past the age of 65. So the only thing that could have happened different there, what if we could educate people to get a higher rate of return? What if, for example, you could get 6 to 12%? Here's the million-dollar question. If you could get 6 to 12%, would you then have greater financial independence? Heck yes. Let's look at this. If you could get 6% on your money would double every 12 years. And if you could get 8%, it would double every 9 years. If you could get 12%, it would double every 6 years. In fact, it would double 6 times over this 36-year period to where when you're 65, you'd have $640,000. Is that amazing or what? But it cost this guy $600,000 to be stuck at 4% interest. There's no difference in what's going on here except the interest rate. The same amount of time, the same amount of money to start with. Now, Jesse, don't you think that's a pretty important principle for you to learn? This could change the quality of your life. And it's not about the $10,000. It's about putting away an amount that you can for yourself. If you will save for you, there may come a day when you will not be able to out-earn your money, but your money will consistently out-earn you. It's pretty cool. So, I want to show you 3 different strategies. Actually, what we want to do is we want to talk about, I'm going to show you something here that may shock you. Because you can't just win the financial battle. You also have got to engage in the battle against taxes. You can't just win both. So take a look at this. I want to show you 3 different strategies. Okay? I'm going to show you 3 different approaches. And then, if you would, kind of give me an indication which one makes the most sense to you. So when I come back, I'll know what's the most suitable for you. So I'll just give you a synopsis of these strategies. First of all, you've got the fixed strategy. Or the fixed approach is what we call it. And this is where you put your money into a savings account. It might be at a bank or a credit union or some other type of money market account. The good thing here is that the return is guaranteed, but it's a low return, maybe 1 or 2%. And that's risky because of inflation. The next approach is the market approach. And in the market approach, this is where you put money in the stock market, individual stocks or mutual funds. And the good thing is you've got a potential for high growth, but you can also lose your money. And a lot of people have, because it's been pretty dicey lately. And the third approach is the index strategy. And in the index strategy, all your principal is protected against market loss, and all your income is, or all your interest is also protected against market loss. You can't lose that money. In the index strategy, all the interest earned is linked to the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 has earned 10% return on average, roughly, over about the last 25 years. So, of these strategies, which one of these makes the most sense to you? Oh, the index strategy. Well, that's becoming a very popular strategy. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. When we get back together, if we determine that the index strategy is the most suitable for you, then I'll explain the specific products, costs, caps, floors, and other specific terms and conditions. But for now, I just want to give you an overview of the index strategy to show you how the interest crediting works. Okay? As I mentioned, all interest earned is linked to the S&P 500 up to a cap, for example, 12%, without any of the downside risk associated with putting money directly into the stock market. So you see that your money is protected from any market loss, and at the same time you get to participate in the gains of the S&P 500 up to a cap, for example, 12%, with protection from any downside risk. That should be pretty important, don't you think? So what if you contributed $10,000 a few years ago to an index strategy? And in the first year it went up by 10%, so you had $11,000. And in the second year it went up by 10%, so you ended up with $12,100. But in the third year, the market goes down by 20%, and that has happened before. In an index strategy, because your principal and interest is protected against any market loss, you stay at $12,100. Whereas you'd have only $9,600 if you'd been invested directly into the index or into the market. So you see why the indexed approach is quickly becoming one of the most popular? Because one of the best ways to win the rate of return and inflation battle is to be able to get potentially higher growth, yet protect your principal from any downside market loss. So Jesse, what I'm going to show you next may shock you. And it's going to be an illustration of why we can't just focus on the battle of the rate of return or the battle against inflation. What I'm going to show you will illustrate that we've also got to engage in the tax battle. So what you see here, in this example, there was a young man. He was 30 years old. And 30 years ago, he wanted to find out, he wanted to know how much he had to save to accumulate $1 million over a 30-year period, so that when he was 60, he'd have $1 million. So he didn't know about any of the things that we've been talking about today. So what he did was he walked into the bank and he said, "Hey, Mr. Banker, I need to know how much to deposit in your bank every month so that I can have $1 million when I'm 60 years old." The banker began to calculate that, and back then CD rates were about 5%. Now they're probably 1 or 2%, but back then they were 5%. So the banker calculates it and he says, "Hey, you need to deposit $1,640 roughly into your bank account here every month, and you'll save over 30 years $1 million. Well, The young man walked out of the bank. He was completely discouraged. He never saved a dime. And now he's a greeter at Walmart. And we've seen him. But what if we could have taught him how to engage in the battle for rate of return and the battle against taxation? Let's take one at a time. Let's just win one of these battles at a time. Let's look first of all again at the battle of inflation. If this young man could have earned 10% on his money over that time period, he would have only had to put $900 a month into the bank. That's a pretty significant difference. So we're winning the battle of rate of return, but it's still $900 a month. Now, Jesse, do you think that people can put $900 a month in their savings? I'm not sure about that. And that's why we have to also engage in the battle against taxes. Because what we see here is that if we keep that same 10% rate of return, but we're able to put money in a place where taxes are deferred, where that money can grow and enjoy tax-deferred growth, then we've only got to put $440 a month away. Now, Jesse, do you know people who can put away $440 a month? Yeah. Probably a lot of people. Heck, you may even be able to put that. You probably blow more money than that each month. The point is that there are a lot of people who could do that. A lot of people could put $440 a month away. And it's not so much about putting that amount away, but it's about putting away what you can at a decent interest rate and enjoying reduced taxes and avoiding the loss of principal. You know, in step 6, when we're finished, a person knows exactly how and when they're going to be financially independent. And if we do it right, we will shave years off of that retirement date. So Jesse, let me ask you this. If you were financially independent right now, which meant that you've got enough money, you've got a nest egg saved, you've got enough money coming in each month so that you don't have to work, what would you be doing right now? What are your goals? What are your dreams? Wow, that is awesome stuff. Think about it. If you were financially independent, you would have options. You could do what you want, when you want, and how you want. You know, it was interesting the other day. I was meeting with a couple. We were in the implementation phase, which is our second meeting. And the wife starts to get kind of excited, and all of a sudden she stands up and she kind of exclaims, you know, I could walk up and down my street and knock on each of my neighbors' doors and ask them when they're going to be financially independent. And you know what? None of them would know it, but I do. And you know what? It was beautiful. At that moment, that couple became one because they knew exactly what their dreams were and when they were going to happen. And that is awesome and powerful. And that is step 6. Okay, step 7 is estate planning. This is our last step. And a lot of times it's about using a trust so that upon death you can leave a legacy and not headaches and possible tax burdens for your survivors. How a trust helps you avoid probate and protect against liabilities, and also the importance of having a will, a living will, a power of attorney, and that type of thing. So, have you ever thought about, or are you concerned about, who would make your legal and financial decisions if you were unable to do that? And have you ever been concerned about who would receive all your assets if you were to pass? Or have you considered whether or not it's time to create or update a will and or trust? See, we recommend that you have someone to do this. Usually that person would be an attorney that specializes in estate planning. Okay? And do you have someone that you're working with that specializes in estate planning? One of the options that we have is that we can put you in contact with a company that's not a law firm, but that produces, creates documents to be used in simple estate planning. So we could, if you're interested, we could introduce you to that company. And that's step 7. So, Jesse, got to ask you the next important, super important question. Those are the 7 steps, and they're pretty awesome, aren't they? Pretty neat. If you had to choose from among these between cash flow, eliminating debt, developing an emergency fund, protecting what you have with it, life insurance, building long-term financial independence, or estate and tax planning, which are also critical, which of the 2 would you choose? Okay, those are great choices. So what we do is called an FNA. It's a financial needs analysis, so that when we can make sure that the products we offer you are suitable. So in a second, I'm going to ask you a few questions to help determine what your needs and goals and dreams are. And then I'm going to take this back to the office, and I'm going to, where we have a very sophisticated software program, and I'm going to input this information in there, and it will help us to develop a plan of attack around your needs to help you become one thing, and that's financially independent the soonest. So it's awesome. So, but this information is important, so I'm going to ask you to bear with me here and give me the best information that you can, because we're talking about your financial future. And if we do this right, we're going to shave years off your retirement date. So in a minute, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. And there's the first 3 or 4 answers, there can't be a maybe. I need a yes or a no. I can't have a maybe. So, are you planning on making a major purchase in the next few years? Next 2 or 3 years? Great. Wow, Jesse, this is awesome. Jesse, you're about to learn and have a crystal clear picture of exactly how and when you're going to be financially independent. And you've got $400 to work with a month. So this is awesome. Now, Jesse, I know that you're serious. So I'm going to be serious too. And I need to take my time with this, and you need to listen, because this is going to change the quality of your life. And you know what? I just remembered that I forgot to explain to you the cost of our service here. When I come back, I expect hot and freshly baked chocolate chip cookies right out of the oven that you have prepared yourself, and a tall glass of the coldest milk. Just kidding, Jesse. Hey, you were getting a little serious there. Couldn't resist that. But seriously, the way that we get paid is if you choose to link up with any of the companies that we represent, then they will pay us directly a referral fee or a commission. So you don't have to worry about ever paying us, being billed or invoiced for our services, because we're going to get paid by the company. So it's a win-win scenario. But again, as I was saying, the information that you give me is very important. So I need to ask you 3 or 4 questions that will contain yes or no answers, and we're going to shave years off your retirement date. So, we need to get back together right away, because we're talking about your life here, your financial future. And if we have to wait until next week, then I'm going to have to recap all of this information again. So having said that, are you available to get together tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Great. And before I go, I just need to ask you 2 last important questions. Number 1, if I come back with a plan that meets your needs in every way, you're totally comfortable with it, is there any reason why we wouldn't be able to do business immediately? Good. And once we've done business, would you be comfortable to introduce me to 3 to 5 of your friends and family members that you think would benefit from our service in the same way that I'm going to help you? Great. I'll see you in the morning at 10.